Welcome. Welcome to the North Carolina Competes for Jobs Tour. I'm Sheila Pierce Knight, Executive Director of the Jacksonville-Onslow Economic Development Office, and I also have the pleasure of serving on the Economic Development Partnership Board of North Carolina. Today's event is co-hosted by your Onslow County government, and we'd like to express our appreciation for sharing this beautiful building today with the commissioners that we have in attendance. We have Vice Chairman Paul Buchanan and Millionaire Williams. Thank you. And did I miss anyone else? Okay, thank you. Please don't hesitate to share with them your appreciation for making this beautiful facility available, and we have been very blessed with a lot of wonderful comments today about this beautiful facility that we get to share for events like this and bring many visitors to our community. With that, I would like to introduce and get the ball rolling today our main guest speaker, and that is John Scavarla. He was appointed Secretary of Commerce by Governor Pat McCrory in December of 2014 and actually began his job in January of this year. Mr. Scavarla joined the Commerce after serving as Secretary of North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Resources for 2 years. Prior to his appointment, Mr. Scavarla enjoyed a successful business career, most recently serving as Chief Executive Officer for Restoration Systems, an environmental mitigation firm based in Raleigh that helps improve and restore wetlands and waterways, something we can certainly all appreciate here on the coast. His leadership role in business extends to a variety of industry specialties, including recycling, physical therapy, aviation, and law. In his spare time, which I don't assume he has very much of these days, Mr. Scavarla enjoys playing golf, driving his classic cars, and searching the state of North Carolina for the perfect hot dog. Please help me welcome Secretary Scavarla.
Thank you, Sheila. And I, too, want to say what a beautiful facility. Congratulations to you. This is absolutely a marvelous, marvelous venue, and thank you for hosting us. And I know you're very proud to have this as part of your complex. Why are we here? Well, I have, as you heard, spent 2 years at Diener, and then a little over a year at the Department of Commerce. And I have learned very quickly at the Department of Commerce that we have some marvelous, marvelous programs for folks. And not everybody is totally familiar with what we have to offer. So we were having a conversation one day and say, isn't it part of our obligation to get out and let people know what we have basically been able to accomplish in the last 3 years, the programs that we have been able to put together, and the integration that we are trying to accomplish, because as you heard, I'm a private sector guy. I find that my experience at state government, there's a lot of silos, and what we're trying to do is break down those barriers and try to make the system more efficient. And at the end of the day, I'm also being asked by members of the General Assembly, and we have Representative Shepard here today. I want to thank you for being with us. I'm asked by the members of the General Assembly, what are you doing to help the less than urban areas of our state? I could give you statistics for the next hour about how well North Carolina is doing. We are at the top of everybody's list. We're the best among all of the categories. From an economic development standpoint, we're on everybody's dance card. But you're also hearing a lot of rhetoric about the Triangle and about Charlotte, and you're not hearing quite as much about the less than urban areas. And I can tell you this isn't a problem that's indigenous to North Carolina. I have traveled all over the world, and it's a problem that's indigenous worldwide. But we in North Carolina are a little bit less urban than most of the United States. The average in the United States for urban-rural divide is 80-20, the old 80-20 rule. And that number locked in 1920 in the United States. In North Carolina, it's 2/3, 1/3. And that number locked in about 1990. And part of that was because North Carolina was a very robust manufacturing state where we had many, many manufacturing operations spread all over the state, which supported what I call our white picket fence communities. And I am a huge advocate of white picket fence communities, and I think we need to do everything we can to return all those white picket fence communities to the grandeur that we once had in North Carolina. So Assistant Secretary Pat Mitchell and Assistant Secretary Will Collins, who handle our rural infrastructure and our workforce development, are going to come up and spend some time with you about the programs that we have to offer. But before we get there, I've got 6 things I want to talk about, 5 of which I'm going to touch on right now very briefly, and then one we're going to, after we have a break, we're going to spend a fair amount of time on. And I looked at an academic study that was recently published, and the study was on what factors have a statistically significant relationship to employment growth. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Fundamental economics is going to drive all the opportunities that we have, including being able to construct beautiful buildings like this. Factors that are statistically significant in relationship to employment growth. The first, pretty obvious, average cost of living. North Carolina, on an index that was published, has a 96.5% rating compared to a California, which is 132.5. New York and New Jersey are right there with California. Our average cost of living is rational. It's not the lowest, but it's rational. Second one, this one will fool you. Nobody will guess this one. Average January temperature. We're actually number 11 in the United States relative to the warmest Januaries. North Carolina for decades has been rated the best all-around weather in the United States. It's a very positive factor for us. Third one, effective income tax rate. You have seen personal, corporate, and inheritance tax plummet in the last 3 years. Pat will talk a little bit more about that. But the governor and the General Assembly have worked very hard to bring North Carolina to be the lowest tax state in the Southeast versus the highest 3 years ago. Here's one that won't surprise you. Union membership. We have the second lowest union membership in the United States, slightly ahead of our folks in South Carolina that we don't talk about much. So we're number 2 in the United States. And here's one that's very, very critical. Share of population over age 25 with a high school degree. Workforce is absolutely critical. If you don't have a place, a site, and you don't have a workforce, you don't have anything. I'm going to save number 6 for a little bit later. But right now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Pat Mitchell and Will Collins, our Assistant Secretaries for Rural Infrastructure and Workforce, and they are going to walk you through the programs that we currently have available and the help that you can get if you need access to these programs. But it is absolutely vital that everybody be familiar with these and that we help you in every way we can to access them. So, Will and Pat.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be here also, and I want to make sort of a pre-comment. Part of my background is as a county manager, and I can't come into a facility like this and not comment on just how beautiful it is. And I know that the secretary has already made that comment, But Sheila and I were talking before the program started. With that county manager background, when I see a facility like this in a community, and it is a building, built public infrastructure to serve the public, that for me is a sign of a very progressive community that cares about the people they serve. And I'm across the state in and out of government complexes, and this is as nice as any I have seen. I'm also pleased to say, and one of the programs you're going to hear about in a few moments, was able to award some economic infrastructure money for the road access that is going to continue to open up some property here in the Burton Industrial Park, and we're real proud of that fact also. And also, I have a Rural Infrastructure Authority board member here, Steve Wangren, who has worked with us for over 2 years now, and it is the board that actually awards the funds as we work with the grant program. So, Steve, I appreciate your being here. Well, we want to talk to you today about some of our programs and how they can perhaps be solutions for some of your challenges. So we will present a number of programs. I hope that there are some takeaways. I believe that there will be, particularly to the local government folks, in ways you can take this information back, work within your community, and then call on us to assist. Will?
Okay. And I'm Will Collins. I lead the North Carolina Department of Commerce Division of Workforce Solutions and NC Works. And we connect North Carolina people to North Carolina jobs. That's something that I've been doing for a long time. I've been in the human resources area for 40 years. I've been in manufacturing for 40 years. And I'm also very proud to be a North Carolina native. I am from Rockingham County. I'm from a little place called Madison in the rural area of northern North Carolina. So I'm excited to be here this afternoon. This morning. I appreciate y'all having us today. What we'd like to talk with you about is what we have done across the state over the past 3 or 4 years. We've tried to intentionally be better, and we're going to share that with you today. We're going to share with you what we have made to change the face of workforce and to change the face of how you look at what we've done with rural economic development. So what we want to talk with you about is what differences that we've made and what differences we've made going forward. So we're going to talk with you about that today because we've tried to make a difference. And we want you to call on us. And we're going to talk about how we make a connection. So we want you to make some connections. We're going to give you some information to pull from. And we want to share that with you this morning. So let's get started.
Okay, meeting the needs of business, certainly a topic that economic developers discuss frequently. It is a topic that my staff and I, running the grant programs, talk about frequently, and I'm not sure I've ever been in a senior staff meeting with Secretary Scavarla that he is not talking to his senior staff about, okay, what do we need to do for business? How do we meet those needs through our programs? So that is what we're going to be talking about today.
So we take a look at different surveys. We look at different information as it's shared across the nation. We took a look at Area Development Magazine in their 29th annual survey. We looked at their top factors that they consider whenever companies make a decision to either expand or to build new places in new communities across the nation. We took a look at the information that they consider whenever a company makes a decision. And you'll take a look at the screen here that says they considered their top factors, and we're going to look at their top 5. Number 1 factor when a company makes a decision to either expand or grow their business is, number 1 was highway accessibility. Number 2 was their occupancy or construction cost. Number 3 and 4 was the availability of land or the availability of buildings. Number 5 is my personal favorite, and that is the availability of skilled labor. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about some of these, but those are the factors that companies consider when they look at building or expanding facilities in local communities.
Some of the factors, as you can see, are more statewide factors. They're factors that are out of your control at the local level. The governor, Secretary Scavarla, and certainly the legislature have certainly been working to improve some of those statewide factors. An example, the major financial incentive packages in the NC Competes legislation that was recently passed. The Job Development Investment Grant, or as we refer to it, the JDIG, has been renewed through 2018. The One North Carolina Fund works harder in the more economically distressed community, matching local dollars at a greater level. The North Carolina corporate tax rate has been significantly reduced from 6.9 in previous years to 4 to 3%. The state's new strategic mobility plan for transportation projects is more data-driven in the way decisions are made, more based on a logical way. All very large accomplishments on the state level factors.
So Pat just talked about some of the things that you might not have control over, but we want to touch on some of the things that you actually do have control over. And these are the things that are available that you have control over, such as your infrastructure that companies consider. Do you have, such as your buildings being prepared? Are they ready to go? If they're not ready, then what are your plans to make them ready to go? Let's take a look at things like your construction cost, your availability of land, the availability of buildings, and your skilled labor. What are you doing to get these things ready for the companies when they consider moving into your local communities? So what are you doing to actively prepare yourself and your communities for companies to consider coming to your local areas?
Factors that business decision makers look at are strikingly consistent. Site Selection Magazine, another national publication, also does surveys. They look at what businesses need, what the factors are. These articles, these surveys are certainly informed by the actual ones that do location projects. They're all very similar, and it's in some of these areas that we believe the Department of Commerce can assist you, can be your partner in ways that we can help you enhance activity in your local communities.
So we really have to pay attention to what business leaders are sharing with us, some of the concerns that they have. We have to focus on developing our skilled labor and moving that into local workforce needs. We have to pay attention to our construction costs and make sure that they are reasonable. We have to work to increase our inventory of available land and buildings. We have to build our infrastructure, such as utilities and things of that nature. So basically what they are reminding us of is we have to focus on the fundamentals first.
And while the fundamental factors may be challenging, here's our message to y'all today. You don't have to do this all by yourself. And while economic development is certainly a local activity, the state wants to be your partner, the state can be your partner, and we think that in being your partner, that we, again, can help enhance activity at the local level community.
So what you're going to see next is a suite of programs. You're going to see a list here of things that are available through Commerce. And we're going to share with you today that all of these resources and all this list of programs are available to you, but what we want to emphasize is these programs are available to you on a local basis. All of these things that you're going to see are available to you in your own communities. Now, you're also going to see on this list the JDIG program, the Job Development Investment Grant, and the One North Carolina Fund. Now, these things are available, but they kind of come after the fact. So we're not going to touch on these we're not going to dig into these today, but they kind of come after the fact. But what we really want to talk about is all these different programs are available to you on a local basis. So what we want to talk about is to spark your imagination. Pat's going to share with you some examples of things that have happened across the state. She's going to share with you some real-life examples. You're going to notice some of the names she's going to share with you this morning are things that you can relate to. So think about how you might apply with these things and plug in some names that might be familiar to you. So think about how you can apply this in your local communities, because this can happen in your hometowns. And we want you to think about this. We want you to call on us because this can happen right here in your own hometowns. So think about this, and we want you to call on us. So she's going to share with you some examples today. She's going to show you some problems, but she's also going to show you some solutions on how we resolve some issues in local rural areas. So she's going to share with you that this morning.
Okay, but before we talk about programs in just a moment, let me also say this. We're here also to listen at registration time. We've already received some questions, but at the end of this, we will take questions. Either Kim Gennard or David Rhodes will direct those questions, and the secretary or Will and I will be glad to answer questions. But also, when you leave the auditorium, there is a table out there with some contact information. So all the programs we talk about, there is a brief description of that program and also the person to call. My number's on there. You can always call me and we will get you to the right place. So let's talk about programs. What if your problem is a vacant building? This is an example from Taylorsville in Alexander County. Many communities have vacant buildings that simply need to be rehabilitated if, in fact, they are going to be used. This one is a former Broyhill Furniture Factory, 203,000 square feet. It dates to about 1950, been vacant 3 or 4 years. An opportunity came knocking when Craftmaster Furniture, a custom upholster for the furniture industry, was looking at increasing their production capacity in Alexander, but they needed more space. If they could put this building into space, they could not only create jobs, they could also increase their production by, they estimated, at 35%. The solution was to come to Commerce. We were able to help through our building reuse grant. We were able to offer a $480,000 grant to be able to bring this building back into use. The company put a $2.3 million capital investment in this old furniture manufacturing building. Overall, in the renovation, Craftmaster was able to create 48 new full-time jobs, adding those to the 500 already in Alexander County, and continue to compete and increase their production capacity to 35%. Another solution that we have, and I have many favorite projects in the building reuse program. It's one of our most used programs. This is out of the Moretz Mill in Hickory. We helped renovate 10,000 square foot in this old mill building to be able to for a software development company that works with the logistics industry, to put 105 employees in this building. They work with truckers as they go across the nation. They identify backloads as they're coming back across the nation. As you can see, they followed the logistics theme in this building. That is the front end of a Peterbilt truck mounted on a half wall. The lights in the boardroom are made from old gas pumps, and some beautiful workspace in that center picture there. And we put 500 between a One North Carolina and a rural grant. We put $565,000 in that project, in that 10,000 square foot. In our building reuse programs and our solutions, we can do vacant buildings. If a North Carolina company, an existing company, has already been in a building for a year and wants to expand, we can help them expand either through construction, adding on to that building, or renovate that building. For healthcare facilities, we can help construct them, we can expand them, and we can also renovate them. Very important program that we work with at Commerce. A couple folks that help us with this that you may be familiar with, if you have tapped into building reuse, Hazel Edmond directs this program. Hazel has worked with building reuse programs and was serving the public for a number of years. And also George Sherrill. Many of you might know George. He's a 40-year employee of state government. These are the federal funds, CDBG, that can be used for building renovation. George probably knows more about the federal funds and what they can be used to help in building renovation, probably than anyone in the southeastern United States. Then we also have, let's say your problem is lack of sewer capacity. We can help with this also through one of our, actually a couple of our infrastructure programs. This is an example of Butterball in Hoke County. in city of Rayford. Butterball, largest producer of turkey products in the United States, was considering locating a food processing facility in Hoke County. To be able to do that and go into an abandoned factory, they needed not only to be able to renovate the building, they also needed to be able to get a considerable upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant to handle the processing that they would be doing. The solution to this was to come to Commerce for public infrastructure. We were able to offer $1 million, both through the rural grant, a CDBG, and One North Carolina. We also were able to help renovate that building. As a result, Butterball is investing $26 million in that facility and creating 84 new jobs in Hoke County. In our public infrastructure program, also a well-used program, we can do upgrades or repairs to public water, wastewater. We can do natural gas. We can do road access, as the example I gave you earlier on the road access. So we can do a number of things with our public infrastructure programs. A couple of folks that work with this, Melody Adams, she works with the infrastructure program as well as working with building reuse. And also Mark Poole, who heads up the utility fund. And I want to say a special word about the utility fund. The utility fund is money that goes into that fund when a JDIG is awarded to a company, often to an urban area or to the larger projects. When that grant is actually paid out over a number of years to the company, a portion of that grant stays in-house, goes into the utility fund so that we can put public infrastructure into Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties. It's one of the ways that the large state incentive programs that we often think of as large state incentive programs actually helps rural development and rural infrastructure. In the entire infrastructure team, we've got Mark and Melody and George. In the time that we have been granting since December of 2013, we have put over $32 million of CDBG money out there into communities for public infrastructure, as well as over $18 million out of the utility fund into Tier 1, Tier 2 counties for public infrastructure. So what if your problem is you have a great site, but you have a really bad building on it? We can go across the state and we can see buildings in many communities, old furniture or textile factories or other industrial buildings, and they simply have outlived their life. Roofs falling in, maybe the copper strip, plumbing strip, etc. We have been hearing this over the last couple of years. Approximately 6 months ago, with the help of the legislature, we were able to put a program into our suite of programs for demolition funds, where we can actually help a community take down a building that simply does not have life left in it. And what this does is allow a community, and in the economic development world, we refer to product, and product is having available land, having available buildings, and this allows us to create a site, a good site, because oftentimes rail is there, sometimes gas is there, almost always water and sewer there. We can get the site cleaned up, and the community can then recruit to that site. Another solution that we have are shell buildings. Through the CDBG funds, we can loan up to $1 million to a local government. So if they don't have product, if they don't have a building, we can help construct a building through a CDBG loan. This one is a loan program, not a grant program, but very reasonable terms. Another problem that you might have is a declining downtown. Again, go across the state of North Carolina in our small communities in the downtowns, and there may be downtowns that really need some revitalization. One of the solutions here is our Main Street program. It's been in North Carolina since the early 1980s, and the Main Street program is all about economic development through historic preservation in our downtown areas in North Carolina. That is a national program through the National Historic Trust. In the Main Street program, we have two grant programs. We have the Main Street Solutions Grant. We also have, just a couple of months ago, the board has approved a downtown development grant program using CDBG funds, so that if a small downtown now has a building they need to bring up to code, perhaps ADA compliance, firewalls, the wiring, the plumbing, often one of the most expensive parts of trying to renovate a building. We can now award money to help bring that building up to code. This is an example of a project that worked through Main Street. This is up in Warrenton. This is Quilt Lizzie. It is a quilt supply store. They received a $75,000 grant, invested $265,000 of their own money. They were so successful in their operation, they took over a second building in Warrenton, and this company has recently received the National Quilting Association award for a Great American Small Town Success Story, again through the technical expertise as well as the grant funds in the Main Street Center. This is Liz Parham. She runs our Main Street Center. She has been with the state for a number of years running this program. 2-3 weeks ago, we had our Main Street Conference over in Goldsboro. Over 500 people attended that conference to learn more about downtown renovation through historic preservation. What if your problem is you simply don't know where to start? I've talked fast. I've thrown a lot of information at you. We believe that we have a lot to offer communities. So if you don't know where to start, here's part of your solution. I have a great team on staff who can help with planning and consultation. If you look at this staff up here and count up the years that they've been working with the public, there's over 125 years experience in this staff, both in public administration, in grant administration, technical expertise, county management, local economic development. They want to help you know where to start, and we want you to contact them. We also have some planners that work across the state. Mark Ziegler is one of them down in the Wilmington area, and Mark is in the room someplace. Mark, raise your hand. And then we also have Will Best that works in the southeast area. We have some planning offices across the state, and these are great folks to get in touch with and talk to them about the services that they can offer. David Peoples is my Chief Operating Officer. David has a very similar background to me. He's a former county manager in Washington County. He's also their former economic developer. He runs the day-to-day operation. But in our background, David and I both feel because of the experiences we have had previously working in local communities, we understand counties, we understand towns, we understand some of the needs that these distressed areas are facing, and we sincerely want to be able to assist. And then one other individual that can certainly help you, Mandy Tetzlaff, is my administrative assistant, understands state government. Her dad is a 33-year employee of Department of Transportation. And Mandy's number there, if you can't get anyone else, Mandy's the one to call. She knows where all the staff is in any given time, knows what our calendars are, and we'll be glad to get you to the right person. So in our wrap-up, let me say this. In the 2 years, little over 2 years that we have been granting funds, we have put over $86 million across the state of North Carolina in the programs that I've talked to you about. That shows a distribution of where those projects are. I mentioned Steve Wangren earlier. I do work with that 15-member appointed board with the secretary as ex officio that actually make the awards a very good board to work with from across the state that certainly understands local communities as well. So we've talked a lot about our programs and the fundamentals, and before I turn it back over to Will to talk about the workforce development part, I want to say this about workforce development. In December of 2004, I left East Carolina University as a professor to take a local economic development job, and as I drove across the state to Ashe County, where I was a local developer, if anyone had told me at that time by taking a local development job that I would spend as much time as I did in workforce development, I might not have taken that job. What I found out after I got into it, just how rewarding workforce development is, and because it's where you're working with the people people, you're working with businesses, just that critical piece of really enhancing economies when you have a strong workforce. Very enjoyable part of economic development. And with that, Will, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Pat. Well, what Pat has talked about this morning so far has been the investment that a lot of people call the investment of industrial capital. And that has to do with equipment and investment of buildings and infrastructure and things of that nature. Well, I want to talk with you about what I consider a different type of investment, and that is your investment in your human capital. And as everybody knows, your investment in human capital is the investment that is going to pay off long term. Now, your investment in human capital is going to pay off exponentially because when you invest in people, of course, I've been in human resources for a long, long time. And you know when you invest in people, that's going to pay off long term over and over and over again. So because when you invest in people, that's going to be your investment over time. That's going to be an extremely valuable payback that you just can't measure as well as you can in your payback of your investment in buildings. But you have to be flexible when you invest in people because your changes in people, your changes in your investment in people is going to be changing daily. Your technology changes, your competition changes almost daily. As we get older, we understand that these changes in technology is something that's going to be happening every single day. I know that, your changes, as we know, we have children, when the changes in our technology has happened almost daily, and now I have to have my children program by remote control. This type of changes in technology has happened overnight. It seems like it has happened overnight anyway. So we have to be ready for that. We have to be flexible about what things have changed. And that's where NC Works and our Division of Workforce Solutions comes into play nowadays. And we have to be ready for that. And that's what we feel like we are ready because we're doing this and we have 600 people in our 82 offices across the state. But NC Works and the Division of Workforce Solutions is not doing this alone. We have partners with our workforce boards. And our workforce boards has 600 people across the state as well. We do this because we collaborate with our partners, with our 23 workforce boards across the state, with our 58 community colleges across the state. And I got to stop and I want to tell you something that I believe heart and soul that's very, very important for us to understand, and we need to make sure that we promote this and we understand and we support this. North Carolina has the absolute best community college system and the best community college program in the United States of America. And I repeat that. We've got the best community college program in the United States. And we need to make sure that we remember that and we promote that and we believe in that because we've got the best program in the United States. And we need to remind ourselves of that every chance we get. We also have our university systems. We've got our K through 12 programs. We've got our partners in our nonprofits, such as Goodwill and other programs like that. We do not do this in silos. We work through our partners, and we have very good collaboration across the state. And we do this by supporting each other. Now, I will tell you that NC Works is very customer focused. We're also responsive to the needs of businesses. And we're also very responsive to the needs of our job seekers. And we do all of this in collaboration with each other. When I came on board with Commerce 2 years ago, and I've only been on board now for 2 years. I've only been a bureaucrat for 2 years. So I'm very excited about that because I came out of the private side. I had been on the customer side of business for 40 years. I understood what the former Employment Security Commission was all about. I had been a customer of the Employment Security Commission for 40 years. I had been a customer of the community college system and customized training for 40 years. I knew how all that worked. But I got to admit, I didn't even know how to spell WIA 2 years ago. I didn't know what it was about. I did not know about federal funding. I didn't know how that worked. So when I came on board, I had a whiteboard in my office, and I asked every time somebody would walk in the door, I'd say, please explain to me how this all fits together. And so I'd draw squiggles on the board, and I'd have lines and charts and graphs and all that sort of thing on this board on in my office. And it had all kinds of charts and graphs and everything, and it looked like somebody had thrown spaghetti up on a wall. And every time I would ask a question about this, the common denominator response that I got was, well, you don't understand. It's real complicated. And I said, well, why does it have to be so complicated? If it's complicated explaining to me, I've been in business for 40 years in HR and manufacturing. If it's complicated explaining it to me, imagine what it's like explaining to our customers, to our job seekers, to our businesses. Why does it have to be so complicated? It doesn't have to be complicated. Let's make it where people can understand it. We don't need for it to be complicated. Maybe that's part of our problem in serving people. So what we did is we got together and we designed a mission statement. So I want you to take a look up on the screen and see, this is our mission statement. We decided to put it together. And here's what our mission statement is. Our mission statement is, and our mission is to develop North Carolina's workforce, to help individuals advance their career opportunities, and to exceed, not meets, but to exceed business workforce needs by connecting talent to jobs. It's not that complicated. That's the message we're delivering across the state. That's what everybody in our workforce, our NC Works Career Centers, that's what everybody understands. That's what we're committed to do. We're letting businesses know it's not that complicated. We want to help you find people to come to work in your teams. We're trying to help people understand that you can go to work with businesses. We're connecting people to jobs and jobs to people. It's not that complicated. That's what we're doing across the state, and we're committed to doing that. And here's our offices. We've got 82 certified career centers across the state. And I want you to look at these dots. These are certified career centers across the state. They used to be known as the old unemployment offices. They're no longer unemployment offices. They are NC Works Career Centers. Would you rather go seek help in your career in an old unemployment office, or would you rather go to an NC Works Career Centers? Because our people are committed. They are passionate about helping people advance their careers. They're also passionate about helping employers to find the right people, the right talent to fill the positions in their companies, to find right people to advance their teams. And that's what we do in our NC Works Career Centers. And that's what we're doing. We're also very committed to helping businesses. We want to listen to businesses. If we don't listen to businesses and understand their needs, then we are doing a disservice to our job seekers. We need to understand what our businesses needs in order to better serve our job seekers. So we're meeting with our businesses every day to understand what their needs are in order to better serve our businesses. And that's what we're doing in our NC Works Career Centers. And we're doing this every day. I want to share with you, I want you to pick one of these up on your way out. This is a map with all of our local career centers in our 5-county area that's represented in this room today. And you're going to find these are all of our career centers here. It has a website on here. It has a local person that is here to represent the career centers. It also has the names and contact information. It also has our workforce board people that are here. We've got from Cape Fear, we've got Margie Parker. East Carolina, we've got Tammy Childers here. Tammy, raise your hand, please. We've got from Triangle South, I don't know if Rosalind's here. Rosalind Cross represents Triangle South. Well, we've got all the different workforce boards that are represented in the local areas, and we've got contact names and telephone numbers. We want you to call these career centers and seek assistance. Please make the connections, because that's what they're there for. We want you to seek out these people and these individuals because they want to help you. These are all available on the table whenever you get ready to leave. We really want you to contact these individuals for as a resource for your local areas. We helped over 500,000 people in our NC Works Career Centers this past year in 2015. So it's very, very, very important that you reach out to these individuals. We also, as I mentioned, we really want to work with our employers to provide them the best service that we possibly can to improve their opportunities to fill jobs everywhere we possibly can. I want to share with you an example of how that works in a rural area. GE up in Ashe County had 140 vacancies for a new project. They were very afraid that they were going to lose this project. They didn't know what they were going to do. They reached out to the High Country Workforce Board. They contacted the local community college and our NC Works Career Center. They had over 600 applications within about 2 weeks, and they made that project a huge success. So all they had to do was reach out to our workforce board representative, and they made it happen. They were tremendously proud of the success they had with that project. This next one is one of my favorite projects, and that is with the what happened up in Hickory. And this happened because our NC Works Career Center manager got together with 5 furniture companies. These 5 furniture companies had been, they had people that were jumping from one furniture company to another, and they were moving for 15, 20, 30, 50 cents an hour, and they were losing mechanics and electricians that were going from one furniture company to another, to another, to another for generations. Not just for 10 or 15 years, but for generations, they were jumping from one company to another just because they were getting a few more cents on the hour. Career Center manager sat down with these 5 companies and said, y'all need to quit fighting amongst each other for the same labor, for the same people. They got together and they put together what was called the Furniture Academy. They got a vendor to donate equipment. They put together the Furniture Academy. They graduated 6 months later, started in January of 2014. They graduated their first 20 graduates. This has been a tremendous success. They have since graduated over 100 people. They now have not stopped there. They have now formed what's called the Manufacturing Academy for that area. It has been a tremendous success, donated equipment from vendors. They now split these graduates amongst these 5 companies. Well, like I said, they've now started Manufacturing Academy for other companies in the same area, but they didn't stop there. We now have that same program has been replicated, and it's now in what's called the Robeson Technical Works in Lumberton, Robeson County. We didn't stop there. It's now being done in Rowan, Cabarrus County, and they're doing it down in Salisbury. Well, we're also now starting this program to have been replicated all over the state in several different places. The same type of program, and it can happen right here. The emphasis is it can happen on a local basis. Tremendous success. It's one way that these areas are addressing the skills gap. So I encourage you, if you want to find out more about it, I can put you in touch with anybody, with people who have seen it work. And it's being a tremendous successful program that we're replicating across the state. It's a tremendous program. And I have legislators were talking about it in our workforce committee about it yesterday, about the success of the Furniture Academy, and we're spreading this word across the state. So it's working in other places. Share with you about ncworks.gov. This is our website. It is another tremendous success. It is free. It is a place where you can register your resume. It is also a place where employers can use this. It is free. And it is also something that's very powerful where employers can register for their job openings, and it's where people who are interested in advancing their career can place their resume and get registered for employment and advance their careers. They don't have to be unemployed. They can just want to advance their career and other opportunities. And we strongly encourage people to use this service. It helps them register their resume and find out whether they're qualified for different vacancies. And you can find out more about it through our NC Works Career Centers, or you can go online to ncworks.gov. We have over 739,000 people already registered. We've got over 23,000 employers that are registered. And again, it's free. It doesn't cost anything. Very powerful program that we're very proud of there. We're making improvements in it every day. I want to share with you about our veterans. Right now, we have 92 veterans representatives in our NC Works Career Centers across the state. Their job and their passionate job is to help veterans all over the state of North Carolina. Not only those that are transitioning out from our military bases, but those that are already out and available in the workforce. They are very good at what they do. They help veterans every day find employment, advance their career opportunities, and they are very good at what they do all across the state of North Carolina. Now, I want to also put in a plug. Not only is it, people talk about, well, hiring veterans is a patriotic and it makes you feel good and it's the right thing to do to hire veterans. Well, that's right. That's true. That's all good and, it's a good, faithful thing to do. But here's the other thing I want to emphasize about hiring veterans. Hiring veterans is a smart business move because veterans are very committed to their objective. They're committed to the mission of the company. They know what it's like to be a member of a team. They know what it's like to fulfill the objective of the team's mission. They also know what it's like to study hard enough for their drug test. Some of you get that. So it is the right and smart business move to hire a veteran. I encourage you, please do everything you can to spread the word about getting veterans on your team. Veterans are very committed to what they do, and we strongly encourage everything that you can possibly do to get veterans on your team in your business. It's a very, very intelligent business decision for you to commit to veterans. I share with you about our apprenticeship program. Our apprenticeship program in North Carolina, we had a very active program a few years ago, and I want to thank our legislators for what they've done recently. About in 2009, there was a $50 fee that started being charged for anyone that wanted to become an apprentice in the state of North Carolina. With this past legislative session, our legislators rescinded that $50 fee, and we are very grateful for that. We have since doubled our apprenticeship registrations in the past year. Our commitment is to double it again next year. The apprenticeship program is one of the most powerful, great programs that we have in our state right now. We have a great apprenticeship program. We've got new leadership in our apprenticeship program going forward. It's a way for students to get involved and get experience while they're learning. It is also something where they can gain education that is paid for by the employer. It is also gaining them experience while they're gaining that education. And it has been an incredible program that we have in the state of North Carolina. I want to share with you something. I was making a presentation last week or 2 weeks ago, and I found this in the USA Today the morning that I was getting ready to go make a presentation. This was in USA Today on Wednesday, March 23rd. It says, "Trade apprenticeships making a comeback." This was in USA Today. It also says in here, "This addresses the skills gap in a different way." It also says, "These kids in this program don't have the same sense of entitlement as college graduates." Apprenticeship is a powerful, great program, and we have one of the best anywhere around. So we're very proud of our apprenticeship programs in the state of North Carolina. So I encourage you, if you don't know about apprenticeships, talk with me after this, and I'll share with you all the great things that are happening with our apprenticeship program. It's one of the best things going on. It is the companies are telling us it's another way that they are addressing the skills gap statewide. So we're very excited about the apprenticeship program. Excuse me. Another thing is our career pathways. Our career pathways in the state of North Carolina is one way that we are digging down into the middle schools. And we're working through our K through 12 program to understand and help our middle schoolers understand you certainly have an opportunity to go into a 4-year college education pathway, but you also have opportunities to go into skilled trades as an option as well. You can go through community college, but you can also go to skilled trades. And we're giving them an opportunity to know this is some options for you. We haven't done that so much in the recent past, so we're now letting them know down to the middle schools There's a lot of different options available for you, and we need to do that. We need to do that in a lot of different ways. So we're emphasizing down through the middle schools, there's a lot of options for you to choose from. So we're excited to talk about career pathways all the way down through our middle school level, and that's part of what Workforce is doing now. So we're letting kids know that they've got many different options to choose from, and we're working through our partners with K through 12 and the community college system. So I'm going to share with you a personal example. So you notice this young man's name here, Mr. Brandon Collins. Have a kind of a personal relationship with him. This is my 18-year-old. He is a senior in high school, and he's going to be graduating from high school this year, in May coming up. And you notice he's got a crowbar and a pair of gloves there and working on looking at a dented fender. I happened to put the dent in that car myself. My wife did not do that. Well, Brandon has decided he's got it figured out. He's got his older brother graduated from Appalachian 2 years ago and got his master's degree in sports administration from Marshall University. He's now looking for a job. His older sister, my daughter, is a sophomore at State, but Brandon's got it figured out. He's not so much an academic kind of guy. He wants to work with his hands. And he's studying auto body collision repair. He's got an internship that he started about 3 weeks ago with an auto body collision repair place in Raleigh. He's doing this through Wake Tech and his high school, through Wake County Schools, and he started an internship doing auto body collision repair. Brandon's excited about school for the first time. He's going to work with his hands because that's what he really enjoys. He came home so pumped up, he was working on a wrecked Porsche the other day. And he's making money. He's making more money than his older brother. And his older brother moved back home 2 weeks ago, and he's rubbing it in, and I'm loving it. But this is for Brandon. Well, there's a lot of Brandons in the world. And I've said this before, and a lot of people have agreed with me. The day that they moved shop class out of our secondary schools was one of the most disastrous times in our secondary school's history. We shouldn't have done that. There's a lot of Brandons in the world. And so what we need to do, and I'll tell you that our workforce program, by moving down to our middle schools and letting kids know that they've got options other than a 2-year or 4-year school, and I see a lot of people nodding their heads, we've got to remind students that they've got options other than a 4-year education, because there's a lot of Brandons out there. And I just want to help me remind our teachers and our counselors that there are Brandons, and we need to respect the Brandons of the world, that we got to let them have options, that there's a lot of kids out there. And I've been in HR for 40 years. I wanted the Brandons so I could teach them when I was in HR. And we just need to remind everybody that there's a lot of Brandons out there. So I just throw in my personal, this is not really so much personal, it's my profession now in workforce development, that we need to remember the Brandons, that there are a lot of kids out there that need opportunities to work with their hands. So I'm just throwing that out there, and I think it's part of our world. NC Works regional directors, our regional operation director for this area is John Lowry, has part of this region. We also have Carl Zerl. Carl is here, right over here. Carl's responsible for the eastern region, southeastern region. So the job of the regional operation director is to collaborate with our workforce boards, our community colleges, K through 12, our community leaders. Please reach out to them and work with them. Their names are on this list that I shared with you earlier. It's down here at the bottom of the back of this page. Make sure if you've got any questions about anything that has to do with workforce, they will answer those questions for you. They will be glad to help you in any way they can. I'll close by sharing a story with you. I went to call on one of our partners in a nonprofit group with the Goodwill program in Winston-Salem about a year or so ago. They walked me through and they were showing me the different training centers that they had to offer. One was a machining center, and I walked in and there was this big elaborate group, and they were saying this is the room where we do machining. training. You do machining training in here? I didn't know you did that. They said, well, yeah, and here's where we do LPN training. I said, you do LPN training, same place you do machining training in another room? I said, I had no idea. And every time I walked in, they showed me a different type of training that they did. And I was like, I had no idea you did this. And every time I'd say I had no idea, they just would grin and laugh. And I'm like, you folks are kind of strange. Well, I got ready to leave, and they said, well, we have something we want to give you. And I said, well, okay. So I walked in the conference room, I was getting ready to leave, and they presented me with this. And I want to show it to you today because I think it's relative to what we're doing today. They presented me with this. And I finally figured out why they were laughing every time I made the statement, I had no idea. See, it says Goodwill on the back. The reason I bring this up is Pat and I so far, and then Secretary Scavarlo is going to share with you some more. The reason I bring this up is there's a lot of what we hear as we travel across the state is people don't know everything that we do. And we want to share with you things that we do. Maybe you don't have an idea about all the things that we do. So we want you to have an idea. We want you to know what we do. And we want you to call on us. And it's kind of like my daddy used to make fun of the story, and people would call on him, and they'd come to back in Madison, my hometown, and he'd make fun. I remember hearing him tell him, he said, somebody came to him the other day and said, well, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help you. Well, the truth of the matter is, we are from the government. But here's what we want to change your mindset about. We are here to help you. So we want you to remember that in a positive way. We want to change your mindset. We want you to know that we are here to help you. So keep that in mind. We can all laugh about it. We'll make fun about it. We joke about it. But we do want to change your mindset. We want you to remember when you hear that from now on, you talk about we're from the government, we're here to help you. Change your mindset. Think about it. We are here to help you. So we appreciate y'all being here this morning, and keep in mind that we are here to help you. Let us know how we can do that.
Well, while we're talking about education, I understand Dr. Ron Lingle's here from the Coastal Carolina. Thank you for, where is Dr. Lingle? There he is. Thank you for what you're doing for this area. And one of the very important initiatives that you have are your small business assistance centers. And we'll talk about more of that later, but it is a critical component of what you do. So thanks so much. All right, I am one slide between you and a break. And don't look at all the stuff up there. This is an easy one. I'm asked continuously, what is the difference between the Department of Commerce and the Economic Development Partnership, which is a new phenomenon. It's existed in North Carolina for a little over a year. Well, it's really quite simple. All we did was outsource our marketing functions to a 501c3. And they said, why did you do that? Well, it's also quite simple. For those of you that have dealt with the State Personnel Act, that's not quite simple. So by putting our marketing arm in a separate organization, we could do two fundamental things. Number one, we could reward great performance. And number two, we can hold people accountable. But there's a third component that is also critical, and that is because it's in a separate organization, we can raise money from the private sector to help support our economic development marketing. It still is, in essence, the Department of Commerce. It's an outsourced marketing group that effectively reports to the Department of Commerce. We deal with each other every day. I had an 8 o'clock phone call for an hour with them this morning. So consider for your purposes that we are one. It is seamless. If you reach somebody from the Economic Development Partnership and it needs to be over in Commerce, they'll let you know, but we will take care of it collectively. Conversely, don't ever feel shy about calling the Department of Commerce if you're confused. If you want to make macro cuts between the two, they work on the first level economic development relationships. They deal with companies that are growing or interested in coming to North Carolina, and we handle the incentive portion. And that needed to be bifurcated. You don't ever want your salespeople in charge of handing out the money too. So it's really that simple. So don't worry about the bifurcation. If you need something, you call the Department of Commerce. If you need something, call the partnership, whichever, because we will get you to the right place and get the right people in front of you. So it is now 5 minutes after 11. I would implore you to come back after the break, because what we're going to talk about is the future. We've done a lot of things this morning to talk about hitting the target and helping you hit the target. What I'd like to talk about this afternoon is trying to hit the bullseye of that target. Before we get focused on the bullseye of the target, I would like to spend a minute and talk about the Department of Environmental Quality. I was Secretary of DENR, Environment and Natural Resources, until they put the parks and so forth under cultural. And I've invited John Evans from the Department of Environmental Quality to come and spend a few minutes with you. And I think it's critical that people understand that environmental quality and commerce are absolutely linked together. They are joined hand in hand. And I'll tell you why. Because who is going to live in North Carolina or grow their business in North Carolina or move their business to North Carolina if we have dirty water and dirty air? It's not going to happen. And when I was at DENR, there was an awful lot of media about how we were going to sacrifice the environment to grow the economy. And it's just not true. Because who's going to move here with dirty water and dirty air? Who's going to live here? No one. I'll give you two easy examples, two real-world examples. Anybody bought any furniture from Ashley Furniture or seen their big black trucks with the red A driving around? Ashley Furniture is the largest furniture manufacturer in the United States. So I had been at DENR for about 30 days. And I get a call from the governor, and he says, "Can you come up here right away?" And I said, "This doesn't sound good." And the governor did not know me. I was not a political appointee. I was a private sector guy, and he and I had met 2 times briefly in the previous year. My name emerged through the transition team. And I was, I believe, hired because I had private sector environmental experience as well as a plethora of private sector business experience in other fields. So I go to this room up at the Capitol where his office is, and it was full of people. And there were elected people, and there were economic development people, and there was the governor. And sitting at this table was the chairman of Ashley Furniture. And he explained to me some of the background of Ashley. It had been started in Wisconsin. It's the largest furniture manufacturer in the United States. Had a manufacturing operation in Wisconsin, had 2 in Mississippi, believe 1 in Florida, 2 in California, maybe 1 in Pennsylvania, and a couple offshore. And he said, I've been coming to North Carolina for 40 years playing golf, and I thought the people of North Carolina were just delightful. And I needed an Eastern Seaboard manufacturing and distribution center right in the middle of the East Coast. So I purchased 740 acres of land and 700,000 square feet from an old RJR facility in Davie, County, outside of Winston-Salem. And he said, I was very excited about this because we are going to add, we're trying to add 1 million square feet. So we'd have 1.7 million square feet of distribution and manufacturing space on 740 acres. And then he proceeded to wave his finger in my face and say, I just want you to know that North Carolina is the hardest state in the United States to do business. And my reaction was immediately, California? And he said, yeah, California. He had been delayed for over 18 months in getting his permits from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And he said, I'm ready to walk away from 750 acres. One of the suggestions Diener had for him to solve some of the permit issues was to go buy more land. And oh, by the way, he was starting with an initial group of 500 employees in Davie County, which sure could have used 500 new employees at the time. So I said, let me look into it. And the bottom line is, this was in early February. By April 1st, we had his permits. By April 1st, he broke ground. And today, Ashley Furniture has 1,600 employees in Davie County. But did we cheat? Did we bend the rules? Did we sacrifice the environment in exchange for economic growth? And the answer is no. We simply did our job, and we took his engineers and the permitting people and the regulatory people, and we got them all together. We took them by the hand and said, here, our job is to help you through the maze of federal and state rules that are going to be necessary to get your permits issued. And lo and behold, between February and April 1st, we got the permits issued. He also had a JDIG pending that he was about to lose. They were ready to leave the state. And now Davie County has 1,600 new jobs. I'll give you another easy example. About a month later, a delegation from Vance County comes down to see me. I had no clue what they wanted. It was probably a dozen people. And they bring this plaque with my name on it. They said, here, we want to give you this plaque. And I said, I've been here 2 months. How in the world could I have done anything to earn a plaque in 2 months? And they said, no, the attitude at Diener, from a customer service standpoint, simply helping us through the maze, turned our permits so quickly that normally would have taken 12 months. We turned them in a matter of weeks. Saved the county $10 million. So we don't cheat. We don't bend the rules. We understand there's a foundation under the house, and that's the environment. And we're not going to sacrifice that environment. But darn it, from a customer service standpoint, we sure can do a lot better. And we are doing a lot better. So John Evans, who's the deputy at the Department of Environmental Quality, is here. And he would like to talk to you for a few minutes about some of the initiatives that are going on, some of the things that we're doing to try to make the combination of environmental quality and commerce more efficient, and some of the things they are doing directly to candidly save the citizens of North Carolina a lot of money. So John Evans, a good friend and the deputy at the Department of Environmental Quality.
Thank you, John. No, that's okay. I'll stand behind here. I might wander. Imagine, if you will, for just a minute, a farm out west, some state out west. And a farmer goes out into the field for the day. Before he gets on his tractor, he sees a car come down the driveway. And out steps a young man, comes over to the farmer and says, "Sir, I'm from the federal government. I'm an inspector, and I'm here to inspect your water use on your farm." And the farmer looks at the young man and says, "That's fine. The The young man pulls out his credentials, holds up a badge, and says, again, federal government, I can go anywhere I want on this property. This badge tells me I can do that. Farmer looks at him and says, that's fine, young man. Glad to have you here. You're welcome to look around, but please don't go in this field over here. The inspector looks at him again, pulls that badge out again, says, sir, you don't understand. I can go wherever I want to go. Farmer looks at him, shakes his head, said, that's fine, son. And he gets on that tractor and he begins his daily chores. About 5 minutes later, he hears screaming. And he looks over in the field. And he sees that young inspector running. And behind him, about 20 feet, is a giant bull. And it's chasing him down. The farmer hops off his tractor and he runs over to the fence. Hops up on the fence. And he yells at the young man, says, son, show him your badge. I apologize, that's the only regulator joke I know. A priest told me that joke. And unfortunately, I remember the joke, but not the sermon. Why am I so excited, or encouraged, I should say a better word, to be here and to see this turnout for this event? I'm encouraged because I realize what Secretary Skvarla has just said, and I believe in it very deeply. There has never been a society, there's never been a city, a county, a state, a country where you will go and find superior environmental performance, and by that I mean clean air, clean water, and clean land. You will not find one in recorded history where you did not have a robust economy. It just doesn't happen. We get that at the Department of Environmental Quality, and that's something that Secretary Skvarla instilled on us when he came 3 years ago, and we appreciate that. I think it was a breath of fresh air. We welcome economic development because it helps us do our job better. We can't protect the treasures of North Carolina without economic development. Now, before I share with you a few of the things that we're doing, I want to share with you a word for the day. Omphaloskepsis. Omphaloskepsis. And I wrote that down because I didn't want to misspell it. That's Omphaloskepsis. Omphaloskepsis. You got that? All right. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Now, Secretary Skvarla, when he came, he spoke about customer service, and he gave two great examples of customer service. And he really did. When he came into DEQ 3 years ago, he sent everybody through training. Every single employee went through training on how to provide excellent and superior customer service. Who here has been to Chick-fil-A? Right? And if you go to Chick-fil-A, what do you think of? Excellent customer service. Right? Now, I'd like to be the Chick-fil-A of state government, but we're working on it, and Secretary Skvarla has really laid the groundwork. We expect every one of our employees to provide you with excellent customer service. I don't care what that is. I don't care who the customer is, if it's the economic development folks, if it's industry, small business, big business, environmentalist. I don't care if you contact my agency, you should get excellent customer service. The other day I was giving a talk, and at the end, I said, are there any questions? And a gentleman stood up in the back and said, John, I want to congratulate you on one of your divisions has provided over the last several months excellent customer service. Prompt, professional response, listened to our problem, tried to help solve it. I said, thank you. We expect that of every one of our employees. And if you're not getting that, to everybody in the room, I want to hear about that. I asked him this. Did you get the right answer? Did you get the right answer? He looked at me, he kind of says, well, I hope so. Let me explain. The right answer from the Department of Environmental Quality is protecting the environment at the lowest possible cost. Okay? There are a lot of examples when I give you an answer to a regulatory problem that you have, when you're recruiting economic development, when you're looking to expand, if I give you an answer that you come back to me, your client comes back to you and says, wait a minute, I can meet that same objective, I can meet that environmental criteria or do better, but let me do it this way, let me do it a different way. That's the right environmental answer, okay? And we're looking for those. Now, we're bound by our regulations. Like Chick-fil-A, when you go there, great customer service, but if you order a Big Mac, you're not going to get it. If you come to me, you're going to get great customer service, but you're going to get the answer that the regulations tell me the answer is. But if that regulation needs to be changed or challenged, you need to tell me about that. If your client can't live with that outcome, but again, can give me the same environmental performance, I'll change that rule. I'll do everything I can to change that rule to make sure that that is not an impediment to economic growth and protecting the environment. And that's why I come back to omphaloskepsis. Who knows what omphaloskepsis is? Does anybody know? No, I didn't even see anybody actually go to their smartphone and look that up. I used this term to a group of lawyers, and the minute I gave it, they were all doing this to look it up. Omphaloskepsis is a Greek origin word. Omphala means navel. Skepsis means to study one's navel. I can tell you right now, it's really a sort of fancy word for we try not to be a bureaucracy. And Secretary Scavarla instilled that in us as well, is that when there's a problem that needs to be solved, we're going to get right on that problem. We're not going to practice the art of omphaloskepsis. We're not going to study our navel, form 16 work groups, and 3 years later come up with an answer, maybe. We're going to get right on it, and we're going to do the best we can to fix the problem that you have. So we don't practice the art of omphaloskepsis. I'm going to give you a couple examples. In 2014, under Secretary Scavarla's leadership, there were several major metropolitan areas that had to use specialized gasoline in the summer months. It was a program we were required to put in place by the EPA many years ago. Turns out that the EPA, and too shocking to some people, the EPA was wrong. It didn't do anything for the environment, particularly in North Carolina. It simply cost North Carolinians millions of dollars. We did the scientific analysis, we did the regulatory analysis, and we fixed it. We saved drivers in the Triangle and Triad just that year alone in summer of 2014 over $18 million. And we've rolled that out to Charlotte now as well. So we no longer have to use, we got the right environmental answer. Other examples, we just recently passed a rule for air quality permitting. A lot of your smaller sources are required to get an air quality permit. You have to fill out paperwork. That small source has to fill out paperwork. They hand it to our agency. Our agency has to look at it. They hand you back a permit. This all takes 90 to 120 days, costs thousands of dollars. We've eliminated the need for about 1,200 of these smallest sources, the need for a permit. Did we sacrifice environmental quality? Not a bit, because not in a single environmental standard changed. The only thing we changed was the requirement to fill out that paperwork and wait for me to send you a piece of paperwork. That rule is sitting in front of the General Assembly right now, and I hope it goes into effect this session. But that's a classic example when you talk to small businesses. We're trying to eliminate paperwork. That saves them money. That saves me resources. They can use that money to reinvest in the company. I can use those resources to then point them in the direction, bigger sources that have a greater environmental impact. I can protect the environment better and reduce the burden on the regulated community. And we're doing that. Let me give you a couple big examples. I think they're still important. Last summer, the EPA proposed a federal clean power plan. You might have read something about that. This is the EPA who decided that they were going to take over the nation's greatest electricity generating system. The EPA, the federal government, was going to tell North Carolina how we generate electricity, and was going to tell each one of you when and how much electricity you can use. The cost of that rule, promulgated last summer, $39 billion nationwide to comply. $39 billion. Residential rates would go up by 24%. Industrial rates between 10 and 30% Are you going to go out there and recruit economic development when our rates, our energy rates, which I think is one of the, the advantages to locating in North Carolina, go up by 30%? It'll make it far more difficult. This was the EPA's federal power plan. Now, you look at me and say, wait a minute, John, you're from the Environmental Agency. Didn't it help the environment? This federal power plan, $39 billion a year to implement. What was the benefit to the environment? Zero. It did not move the needle on climate change one bit. The modeling showed it didn't make any difference to climate change. It made no difference to any environmental standard in North Carolina. It was simply an attempt by the federal government to take over the nation's best electricity generating system. So in the face of that, when we briefed the governor says, that doesn't make sense for North Carolina to raise energy rates for no reason. Secretary Vanderbilt, my boss, I want you to stop that. We joined with several other states, and for the first time, about 2 months ago, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a stay of that rule. It will not go into effect. And again, it's the first time the U.S. Supreme Court has issued a stay on an environmental rule. And they not only issued a stay, they said it stayed at the lower court level and until we at the Supreme Court look at it. That's how dubious the legal reasoning was behind the rule. So we stayed that rule. And we think it didn't make sense for North Carolina, and we were not going to let it go into effect. Another federal overreach rule from past summer was the waters of the U.S. The federal government had attempted, for those of you in economic development, when you impact wetlands and streams, it's one of the more difficult things to deal with. Ashley Furniture had to deal with this. And that is difficult. Under this new rule by the federal EPA, they actually were going to declare almost all land east of I-95 to be federal wetlands. That would have a devastating effect on economic development. It would have a devastating effect on farmers, the agricultural community. Again, no real environmental benefit. Another situation where the governor instructed the secretary of DEQ, stop that rule. We went to the courts. We've got a stay of that rule. It's not in effect right now. So again, these are examples of us looking for the right answer. We're always going to provide outstanding customer service, but we're also looking for the right answer for North Carolina. We understand that your economic success drives our ability to protect the environment. I've got two very quick ones that I want to talk about what is coming up. We have proposed to the General Assembly this year the removal of what we call emissions inspection requirements in 31 counties, including Onslow County. Again, it turns out that we have these requirements. You go in every year, you get your emissions checked, they plug your car up to your computer. That particular requirement in 31 counties, including Onslow County, is not necessary. We looked at the benefit of doing that, and there really was very little environmental benefit at all, and it cost taxpayers about between $30 and $37 million a year. So we are proposing to remove that requirement. Again, a common sense idea. It didn't protect the environment, and it cost our consumers money. Didn't make sense. Again, thanks to Governor McCrory's leadership, the NC Connect bond was passed. That will give my department and the Division of Water Infrastructure about $300 million, about $100 million that we'll be able to provide in grants and about $200 million in a revolving loan to help water and sewer infrastructure. So if you're aware of a community that needs help with repairing water infrastructure, you need to be aware of that. Again, it's $100 million, additional $100 million in grants, and the $200 million in a revolving loan, which really is about $450 million over 20 years because it's a revolving loan program. So that's another example of the things we're reaching out. We understand that your success drives our success, and we are committed to making sure that you succeed. So I hope you leave here today looking at all the menu of different things that we've discussed and all the options. If you just pick out one, if you just come out with one new idea to help you be more successful in your job, we'd appreciate it because it will definitely improve North Carolina's environment. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I don't know how these folks stand behind a podium. I'm too ADD. All right. Remember I said there were 6 factors? We had average cost of living, January temperature, income tax rates, union membership, share of population with a high school diploma. Number 6 is the heart of the target. What factors have a statistically significant relationship to employment growth? Number 6, net percentage growth rate in the number of small businesses. 80% of the employment base in the United States and 80% of the employment base in North Carolina are small businesses. So we hear all this rhetoric about recruiting 2,000-person companies, and that's wonderful. I call it the great white whale. We're all searching for the great white whale. But everybody knows about the great white whale, and everybody's trying to stick a harpoon in that great white whale. And we'll get our share, but we're not going to get all of them. But what about the plays that don't make the highlight reel? What about the plays that are just blocking and tackling and not the 80-yard touchdown pass? The blocking and tackling that needs to go on every day. That is our small business community. And we have all these wonderful programs. You heard from Pat and you heard from Will. We've got all these wonderful programs that support blocking and tackling. But at the end of the day, there's a couple of missing components, one in particular. So let's look at the screen and see where we are. We're a dot on the map. What goes with that dot? Well, that dot is part of 99 other counties in the state of North Carolina. And if we had to go back and redo this today, I doubt there would be 100 counties in North Carolina. We really need to think, and this is really Governor McCrory's vision, we really need to think beyond. We are, in essence, a region. And how does that region connect itself? Well, it has major highways and a seaport. It has rail system. It has airports that are connected through other regions. And interestingly enough, if you look at those circles, they extend across state lines. We need to take advantage of that opportunity. Who here has seen the front page of the Rock Hill, South Carolina recruiting brochure, their economic development brochure? What do you think it shows? It shows the Charlotte skyline and an airplane taking off out of Charlotte Douglas Airport. They're not stupid. They get it. We need to think beyond the dot. We connect those regions not only with rail, but we also have a 25-year Department of Transportation plan. And what's the idea behind that? Well, it's a remarkable and a different change. Pat mentioned it. Those dark lines, they connect for 3 reasons. They're data-driven. They connect congestion. They eliminate congestion. They focus on safety, and they focus on economic development. So they're designed to facilitate in connecting the regions together. What else do we have? There's no business, small or large, that is going to grow in North Carolina or move to North Carolina unless we have connectivity. We must have access to the internet. And broadband can take a couple of forms. You can have DSL or you can have fiber. Obviously, the goal is to have everyone connected with fiber. But certainly you must have basic connectivity in order to grow your business. Now we have some missing areas. where you can see we need to fill in. But the good news is North Carolina is actually one of the most connected states in the United States. It's hard to get this information because much of it has been installed by private carriers, and they're not necessarily anxious to release that information. But we have now every school in North Carolina connected. The immediate goal is to get every community center and every library connected. And we're trying to do that without tax appropriation. We believe we can use federal dollars. We believe we can use private dollars. We can use foundation dollars in order to fill out that map and make sure that everybody has access, even if they don't use it. We should have no excuse. We will not grow this economy. But what is really missing? What is the secret sauce that is missing? I've said it twice now. We're hitting the target, but we're missing the bullseye. What's the missing component? Anybody? Access to capital. You're not going to grow a business unless you have access to capital. And I have it in three forms. Governor McCrory has it in three forms. The first is something we call Project Phoenix. I was with the governor probably 90 days into the administration, and we were working on our first budget, and I can assure you that government budgeting and I had never seen each other before. And I said, Gov, we're the 9th largest state in the United States. We're the 9th largest economy in the United States. Why do we feel so poor? Why is there never money for things that seem to be obvious programs? I'll tell you what I think it is, and the governor agrees with me. Do you know that the state of North Carolina owns 12,000 buildings over 3,000 square feet? 880,000 acres of vacant land? Everybody here, I'm sure, has heard of the concept called a sale leaseback. When interest rates are 2% and below, and by the way, we're a AAA rated credit state, and all three rating agencies, there's only a handful of those in the United States. I said, Gov, we've got all our money tied up in raw land that doesn't produce anything. It doesn't generate any income. So Project Phoenix is what it's been captioned or titled. Remember the flight of the phoenix that rose from the ashes? Everybody thinks it's Phoenix, Arizona, but it's really North Carolina. We've done an inventory or a partial inventory. There's no button you push in the state of North Carolina to identify all 12,000 of those properties. And the first thing we need to do is figure out what we can sell that we don't need. And there are assets that we can sell that we don't need. But then the others, we don't have to sell them. We can do effectively a long-term leaseback where we generate billions of dollars in cash today and redeploy that cash in every county, in every region in the state of North Carolina to start generating revenue from it. That's easy to say, but I'll give you two simple examples, and I'd love to see all the counties come up with the ideas of where that can be done. Because it doesn't have to be property in your county. It's how do we redeploy it? Everybody here, I assume, has been to the North Carolina Zoo. If not, and for those of you who don't know, it is the largest land mass zoo in the world. It gets 750,000 visitors a year. Well, in my humble opinion, it shouldn't be just a zoo. It should be a major north, south, east, west destination right in the middle of the state and have 5 million visitors. And you can go and see animals, or you can go to a convention center, maybe not as pretty as this, but a beautiful convention center. And while you're in the conference, on the second floor, a giraffe walks by your window. And while one of the kids is playing in a soccer tournament, the other kids are riding zip lines through the rainforest. There is no reason in the world that we can't employ that concept and turn that facility at 2,600 acres into one of the most dynamic income-producing projects in the state of North Carolina, designed right to be in the middle of to be right in the middle of the state. That's one. Number two, if you haven't been to the zoo, I know you've all been to Raleigh. And Raleigh, in the last number of years, on one side of the Capitol, down toward the Performing Arts Center, has done a pretty good job in resurrecting itself. But you go to the other side of the Capitol, you go to the government complex, it looks like East Berlin on its worst day. It is an embarrassment for we as North Carolinians to say that is our state capital. You walk out of the governor's mansion and you see a building with no windows in it that stores books or papers or something that looks like a gulag. That Archdale building at the end of the government complex down there was designed by a Charlotte architect who obviously hated Raleigh. 15 stories that was supposed to look like the Washington Monument with no windows in it. It costs more to maintain that stuff than it's worth. You drive into Raleigh on Downtown Boulevard, and what's your welcoming sight? Garbage trucks. We should be ashamed of ourselves as North Carolinians that that's the representation of who we are and what we are. That should be a vibrant commercial, retail, and office community that draws millions of people and, oh, by the way, is efficient to operate simply because the cost benefit is appropriate. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of those projects, and all the financing. There would be worldwide bidding for a project like Phoenix, and we have the second largest financial center in the United States in this state. We're a strong financial state. All that money could be provided by every institution in the state that wants to participate, from banks to credit unions to insurance companies. The great white whale? Why do we compete for that great white whale? It's ours. We own it. How many tens of thousands of construction jobs and engineering jobs and architectural jobs and logistics and supply chain jobs do we create with a project that's statewide, using our own assets? The great white whale, and we don't even have to compete for it. Second one, and I'm glad representation is here from the General Assembly. For 3 sessions now, I have tried to get something passed called crowdfunding. And for those of you that don't know what it is, we call it PACES, Providing Access to Capital for Small Businesses and Entrepreneurs. Basically what it is the ability to raise capital for everyday businesses from everyday people for everyday projects without all the red tape of the federal securities regulations. We have representatives here from the Small Business Administration. Talk to any bank or any lender. SBA can loan money, but it needs fundamental equity. It needs some skin in the game from somebody else before they can make a loan. Or they can make you a bigger loan. 3 sessions I have asked the General Assembly. In 3 sessions, it's not that they're against it, it just keeps caught up in some of the ping pong games that go on. I'm hoping this session that we can have the crowdfunding bill passed. I think the House passed it unanimously last time, but it got caught up in the ping pong game. We need to access capital for small businesses, because without that access to capital, it's not going to happen. And the third is even easier. I'm suggesting a $100 million early stage venture fund. I don't know if any of you have dealt with venture capital, but venture capital is not for startup companies. Venture capital today is for billion-dollar upside. Venture capital today is for companies with revenue and cash flow. Well, what about the 5 guys getting out of the Marine Corps that are HVAC experts and want to start an HVAC company? They've got the expertise, but they don't have the capital. Those are the kind of businesses that stay right here at home, but they need just a little boost. We need an early stage venture fund. It needs to be professionally managed, and it needs to be available to everyday people for everyday businesses. Not everyone's going to get funded. Not everyone's going to succeed. But with all the layers of assistance that we have someone here from the Small Business Technology Development Center. They're here to help. We have the SBA. We have NC IDEA, which is a grant program. And I wish I could go on, because my impression of our available programs is like someone in the back shooting a shotgun at that wall, and you'll see a scatter pattern. I think our grant programs and our assist programs are that widely scattered in the state, and there's not one person in the state can tell me what they all are. We are working very diligently with the Department of Administration to try to get a handle on all of those programs and make them easily available. Like Will said, it doesn't have to be complicated. But the silos have been built up for so many years that there is no single access, there is no single source. There's a program in commerce that I'll bet most of you don't know about called Business Link. 4 people on the telephone taking calls, helping people at least get through the maze of permitting and licenses. They get 17,500 calls a year, 2/3 of which are small and startup businesses. Wouldn't it be wonderful if those folks could direct those calls, and hopefully it's 5 times more, I hope there's 100 people working there, to our community colleges with our small business centers, to the professionals in the area that understand the myriad of grant and assistance programs? There's one called the Support Center that actually makes loans and grants. Nobody can tell me what they all are. We need to get those corralled. We need to get those under one heading. We need to provide those services to make it easy, not it's real complicated. But without access to capital, we're not going to return the white picket fence to small town or less than urban America. It isn't going to happen. So if we can continue with Project Phoenix, if we can get crowdfunding passed, we can get a small business venture fund, $100 million. Don't even need it all at once. You could do it $20 million a year for 5 years and let it carry over. Do you realize the impact that would have, the statement it would make for everybody in North Carolina, to every entrepreneur? We would be attracting entrepreneurs from all over the country, because at the end of the day, we are still a small business world. And I'll leave you with this. Who's the fastest runner in the world? Nobody knows, because not everybody's ever been given a chance to compete. Let's apply that theory to entrepreneurial North Carolina. Let's apply that theory to small business North Carolina. How much talent, how much growth, how many new jobs can be created if we give all those people access to capital as well as access to all the programs you've heard about today? There is nothing, nobody can stop North Carolina. We would be something unique in the world and unique in the United States. And as I tell my friends at the General Assembly, it's like playing baseball, except the ball is a beach ball. All we've got to do is get the bat off our shoulder. It's all right there. So thank you very much for being here today. And I know we have time, Kim, for some questions. And then I would like to take just a couple of minutes after questions and show you a little video we've produced about the North Carolina brand. So, Ms. Kim.
All right. Thank you, Secretary. So this is your time now, and we don't want to take too much more of it. I know we're starting to go a little bit over the noon deadline. But if you have a question for any of the deputy secretaries or Secretary Scavarla, we are here to answer them. If you're too shy to do it in front of the crowd, we'll try to stick around for a little bit. I have a list of questions, but I wanted to start. Any of you first with a question for anyone? Yes, ma'am.
This presentation has been absolutely phenomenal, informative, and I'm truly delighted that you guys are here to offer. And Sheila, again, I thank you for setting this up and bringing this information to the county. I am Commissioner Williams, proud of Onslow County for all that we have and all that we do here for our public. But one of the questions that I have, the different grants that are available, and one specifically, the building reuse. How long, because I know there's criteria, of course, and say if all the criteria has been met by the applicant, how long does the process normally take for these grants to be approved if everything is in place?
The Rural Authority meets every other month. In the off month, we take in applications. So if everything is complete and you have it into us by the deadline, then the authority will review it, and if it's awardable, be awarded that next month. And then once it is awarded, the project can start spending money. You don't have to be under contract. You do have to be awarded. So it could happen in 4 to 6 weeks.
And Commissioner, we also call special meetings. So when we have projects that come to us and there might be a deadline because they're interested in a certain building spot or a lease, there have been times that we've had conference calls, just the customer is the company and the municipality that comes to us. So we're very customer service focused, and we can hold special meetings too. I'd be remiss not to talk about the McCrory administration's focus on veterans and the military, since we are in Onslow County. And Will, I would like you to address this question. It's a little known secret on ncworks.gov, but veterans and military get a little bit of special treatment there that we don't widely publicize as far as jobs. So would you talk about that? And this involves our ncworks.gov website.
Yes, one thing that we do with the ncworks.gov is that all veterans get a 24-hour advance notice before any jobs are released to the public. So any job that we have that comes open, that is posted, veterans get a 24-hour advance notice on ncworks.gov before it was released to the public. So that's just something that's not widely known. We want veterans to get a jump on everybody else before any job goes on, before any job's posted to the public. Veterans get first shot at it. So I just thought I'd offer that to everybody to know.
Very early on, when you all launched that back in, I guess, 2014 now, or 2013, am I?
August of 2013.
Yeah, there was a company that actually hired 3 high-level executives. So we're talking the full parameter there, and we have more than 23,000 companies trolling on that site for people. So we hope to grow it, and that's why we want to publicize it for all of you with the workforce component.
And I'll just offer one other thing is that one question we got in one of the other meetings we had was, does NC Works assist with job fairs? And the answer is absolutely. We get excited about helping with job fairs. We can either do it at our NC Works Career Centers, or we can do it at a company site, whichever is more convenient. We can do it at either place. So we get really pumped up about helping with job fairs. To give you an example, about 3 weeks ago, we did one in Rocky Mount at a local center there, and we had over 1,000 people show up at a job fair. And the last count I had was, I think there were 300 job offers that were made on site at that job fair. So we really get excited about having job fairs, so we'll do those anywhere. In Hickory 2 weeks ago, they were getting ready to move out of that office into a new location. They did 16 job fairs in the month of March in Hickory while they were getting ready to move to another new career center. So we do job fairs every chance we get. So we really get excited about doing job fairs. And we'll do those at the Career Center or at an employer site, either one.
All right, great. Secretary Scavarla, I have another question for you, but anyone from the crowd? Any hot burning questions? Yes, sir.
In conjunction with the community colleges doing the great job they're doing, and the entrepreneurs being able to, as you say, come out of the Marine Corps and start their HVAC business, facilities and infrastructure for business incubators. A facility built where it's divided up where that property can be available for those people who are wanting to get started that don't have the funds to go out and rent commercial properties to get those businesses started, whether it's a sewing shop, a machine shop, or whatever in that part. Is there any funding or any efforts throughout the state to do anything like that?
Secretary Scavarla is going to take that one for us.
That's a great observation, and obviously a man of experience on that front. They are popping up all over the place. I was just in Conover yesterday, and they've got one going up there. There's certainly an incubator in Durham. They have all been so far funded locally by the either private or public-private partnership with the county and the city and so forth. But you're exactly correct. But to date, the ones that have popped up have been a combination of public-private at the local level.
They've been successful, they're working out.
They certainly are. Boy, you ought to go up to the one in Conover. It is just amazing what's going on up there. And Durham is more life science and pharma, but just for everyday stuff, Conover's remarkable. Matter of fact, there's a workforce center right there, right next to the one brand new, just opened.
Secretary, keep the mic. So we really have focused on our rural economic development programs because we don't feel like they get the publicity they deserve. But what you do read a lot about in the paper is our big monster program, the Job Development Investment Reimbursement Grant Program. That takes the headlines all the time. John, a question that we've gotten and a few others who got it here as well. How do we level the playing field? South Carolina typically outbids us quite a bit. How do we level the playing field, North Carolina versus South Carolina, and keep companies from going across the border?
Well, I think it's more level than people realize. South Carolina has attracted some automobile manufacturers, and that goes way back. That goes over 20 years in history. They made the decision back then. And as a matter of fact, I'm sure you all saw the headline, Volvo is going to South Carolina. I talked to my counterpart in South Carolina, and he swears that the reason they chose South Carolina is they wanted to bask in the glory of BMW. But we have significant automobile supply chain manufacturing in this state. We have 190 aerospace manufacturer supply chains. We didn't get Boeing. But when I was at the Paris Air Show, I met with one of the representatives from Boeing, and they didn't say this outright, but they implied. Certainly the Port of Charleston was helpful. They picked South Carolina because it could help what they considered an economically distressed state. And North Carolina is not considered an economically distressed state. Now, it certainly wasn't the only factor. But the fact that that even came up was surprising to me. So I don't think we necessarily we lose as badly as it appears. I'll give you a very easy example. Metropolitan Life moved 2,600 jobs to North Carolina. Those jobs pay $85,000 a year. Well, that's the equivalent of about 6,000 jobs at $40,000 a year. And guess what? If the economy takes a dip, if we're not selling 17.5 million cars a year, they're going to get hurt a lot more badly than we are. So we are much more diversified because we have things everybody covets. Because we have pharma, we have biotech, we have life science, we have IT. And we have our share of manufacturing supply chains, and we have our share of manufacturers. So we have the most robust economic grant programs that we've ever had in the history of the state. The General Assembly was very good to us. We have the most robust programs, and remember, those programs are not like giving college scholarships. They all return dollars to the Treasury every time an award is made, or else we don't make it. You know, you give a kid a college scholarship and they never score a point for your team, they still get the money. Ours are always net gains to the taxpayers of North Carolina, or we do not do it. So I'm not too concerned about losing to South Carolina. I'm more concerned about making sure we stay diversified. We keep hunting for the great white whales. We don't want to lose those. But we also do our blocking and tackling. If we do that in tandem, then there's no state in the country that's going to touch us.
Number one state in the Southeast for manufacturing jobs. It's a statistic I keep telling the media all the time. We're very bullish on North Carolina, and we can be very proud of what our state has accomplished. If you would just wave your hand, I want to recognize a lot of partners in the room. So if you have a specific question, when the secretary concludes the event, you can seek out these people. From our Economic Development Partnership, Tim Ivey is here. Thank you for being here today, Tim. From Transportation, Department of Transportation, Robert Voss, who is a district engineer for Onslow and Pender. Thank you, Robert. And Preston Hunter for Sampson, Duplin, and Jones, if Preston is still here. Hi, Preston. DEQ, of course, John Evans cracked a few jokes, so he's here to help with permitting. Small Business and Technology Development Center, Bion, is here, Skulkin. Employment Security, Elizabeth Mewborn, a field tax auditor, is in the room. Oh, there you are. And finally, the U.S. Small Business Administration, Don Spry, Senior Area Director, is here. Okay. And we are going to conclude now, and we thank you for coming today, but this is, we're going to talk about branding now for a little bit.
And I'll be brief. We have about a 1.5-minute video we'd like to show you. Has anybody ever been through a branding initiative? It's hard, isn't it? Everybody's got a different opinion. Well, when I got to Commerce, our branding initiative was about 80% complete. I got it in the red zone. We had to make a decision. That's the hard part. But when we first got here, when Governor Croy was first elected, he looked at all the agencies and the letterheads and the logos, and he said, everybody's different. Aren't we one state? Shouldn't we be unified under one brand with one slogan? And the answer is clearly yes. We're not all different. We're not all in silos. So when I inherited this in the red zone, it was decision time. And ultimately, the governor made the decision. But there were a lot of good suggestions and a lot of work went into this. So we've produced about a 1.5-minute essence video, that we call it, that I truly do believe represents who we are as North Carolinians. So let's play that, and then David's going to put the logo back up at the end of the video for just 1 minute.
How far can you see from a mountaintop? Or across the ocean? Or from the windows of the executive suite? In North Carolina, the view is always changing. And everywhere you look, there's something beyond compare. It's in the people, the places, the spirit and the spark we all share. We've always chased the next horizon to bring our ideas and our dreams to life. It happens here because this state is far-reaching, as far as the eye can see and the mind can roam. It's where we have room to grow a business and the time to enjoy what matters most. We're all welcome to put down roots here. Explore the wide open spaces. No matter where we want to go, there's nothing in our way. North Carolina, everything is possible. Nothing compares.
I think it truly is reflective of who we are and what we are. And if you look at the logo, green to blue, mountains to sea, the state's growing longleaf pine in the middle with very solid roots. And a very simple slogan, NC, North Carolina, Nothing compares. And it truly is the essence of who we are and what we are. So thank you very much. Any questions that didn't get answered, certainly let us know, and we'll be happy to email you answers. But we genuinely appreciate your time, and we hope this has been somewhat helpful for the future of the growth of our state. Thank you.